All right, so we're going to be moving to the second part of today's or this walk cycle's setup. Okay, we're going to be looking at how to make the character not only do a treadmill, but also how to take that treadmill and then translate that treadmill forward in space. I know that some of you are behind in getting your treadmill poses started. We will review those today as well. Just to give you an update, I haven't gotten all the marking done on your side steps. I'm working on getting that done. So I'll get that, hopefully this weekend, I'll have it all done for you, okay? And then I'll hopefully get that back to you by Monday. Okay, so let's take a look at the basic process. I just put this little demo together here to show you where we're going with it. Okay, so I didn't do the upper body. I just did the lower body here just to show you how the feet in that are going to lock to the floor to get that step to work properly. Let me just turn that off. Okay, so I'm going to show you the ins and outs of how we do it. I give you a little PowerPoint as well to talk about how we actually structure it. But what happens here is the base node will slide forward at a linear speed, which is equal to the speed of the feet sliding backwards, which cancels the two out, which makes the feet stick to the floor. Okay, it can get a little complicated, especially when we start to have the foot go past the length of the walk cycle. So when the foot goes back and slides backward, again, here's your two contact positions. But in an actual walk cycle, we push ourselves off, right? We push ourselves off the ground when we come to the end of our walk cycle. So really that foot needs to stick to the floor for an additional few frames until it actually lifts up off the ground. So in this example here, it's not the contact position that the foot's being lifted up on. It's actually the down position of the first down position that the foot actually lifts up and moves forward, okay? So in doing that, it actually extends the length of time that the feet are on the floor, okay? So this is a 12-frame walk cycle, which means the contacts are on 13, but because the feet are sitting on the floor longer, it's actually holding until 16 for the foot on the floor. That doesn't change the length of the walk cycle. It just changes the length of how long the back foot stays on the floor. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at today. Okay, and that makes the walk more natural. Okay, if you were to pick up the foot right at the contact position, like in the Richard Williams book, it's a bit unnatural because the body's actually a little bit off balance if we were to do that, right? So basically Richard Williams and all the other books have the foot lifting off the ground basically at this point. They lift up, but technically if I was to lift that foot up at this point, I would fall backwards because it actually pushes me off the ground into the next step in a more natural walk, okay? So when I go forward here, you see the back foot stays on the ground for an additional 3 frames, okay? And that additional three frame push allows the front foot to start to come under the body to catch the weight and then lifts the foot off the ground, okay? So there's a bit of a trick there in getting that to work smoothly. And also there is a bit of back and forth into how we use the ball roll versus using the foot rotation controls to get it to work correctly together. So what I'd like everybody to do is to please get out some notepad and pencil or your laptop or something that you can make notes on for we can go over this step by step because you may get lost in this procedure very quickly, okay? If you have a notepad and paper, that would be ideal. I did put a PowerPoint up that we will be looking at as well. Okay, so let's just look at kind of the structure first, and then we'll go into the Maya demo side of it and try and walk through this step by step because it's a little technical. So calculating the forward motion to prevent foot sliding. Okay, this is extremely important, especially if you're in any kind of TV setup, web animations, anything that has cycle work in it, walk cycles like this. You want to be able to have the feet or have the character move forward through the scene. And this is the same in a traditional walk cycle on paper. We would actually treat it exactly the same way. Picture this. If you have a walk cycle on paper and you have the character treadmilling on the middle of the screen and you have the background panning behind the character, how do you calculate how fast the background goes? Yeah. How many units what? So you're partially right. You're on the right track, right? So if we look at this from a traditional standpoint, right? If I have a character that has this one foot up here and then this foot is back here, right? And I look at the heel positions right here, okay? I need to, if I was doing this traditionally, I would actually take a ruler and I would measure how far each stride was to make sure that the amount of time it takes or the distance they go forward is equal value, right? So if this was, let's say like 5 centimeters or something, right? Then I would have to go through here and mark off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Sorry, I'm not quite even there, but right? This would be where the heel contacts would slide back to on each down pose to the contact, right? So you'd have like your down position, right? This would be your mid, and then you would have your up, and then you'd have your contact. So actually, let's do it 4 to make it easier. Okay, so we'd have down, contact, contact. Let's put this back here. 4, contact. Okay, and it is 4. Okay, so plus the contact up here would be your 5th anyways, but your 4 poses, right? So that would give us a total of, well, actually, you know what? I was right the first time. What am I doing? 5 centimeters, because this would be 5. Let's do that again. I'm going to confuse the hell out of you guys. Okay, so this is contact, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That makes more sense. Okay, so this is 5 centimeters going back. So contact to down is 1 centimeter, down to mid is 1 centimeter, and so on and so forth. That means that the background for one stride going back would have to move 5 centimeters in distance. Okay? So as this foot would slide backwards, okay, it would go back 1 centimeter each time it went into the down, mid, up, and contact, which means the background would have to also move at the same linear speed behind the character for the same distance. Does that make sense? Did you guys do a background pan last year? Yeah. Okay. So we treat Maya the same way, except we have to add to that. Okay, so instead of the background panning on 5 centimeters, what we do is we take the base node of the character, the node at the bottom of the feet, right, that circle, and we move that circle forward by 5 centimeters, right? So what happens is the character moves forward, the feet slide backwards at 5 centimeters, which cancel each other out. So it makes the feet look like they're locking to the floor. Okay? So from a traditional standpoint, that's what we're trying to do, right? So do I have a eraser? So looking at how we do that in Maya, not the best eraser. Okay. Okay, so we're going to measure the feet slide, right? So we take the furthest point back and the furthest contact point forward, and we measure those two things, right? So let's do another drawing here. So if I'm looking at the character now in Maya in 3 dimensions, right? And I have 1 foot back here on the ground, and then this foot's up here, right? So here's his leg coming down, leg going forward. And we have right down the center, okay? This point right here between his feet is 0 units. It's right at the center of the grid, okay? The amount of space that goes forward would be X value forward. The amount of space going back is X value going backwards, okay? Negative going backwards, positive going forwards, right? We take those two values and we get the difference, and that gives us the value we need to move forward, right? So let's put a value in here for X. So let's say we have 10 units forward and minus 10 units backwards, right? The difference of those two equals a total of 20 units, right? 10 plus 10 equals 20. We get 20 units, which means that the circle under his feet, the base node, for 1 stride going back has to move forward a total of 20 units in the same number of frames that the foot slides back. Okay, so if the foot takes 13 frames, or maybe 16 frames, if the foot goes further back, then this base unit would have to go forward 20 units in 16 frames to cancel each other out. Okay, so with that, let's try and do, before we go any further in the lecture, let's try and do that in Maya. Let's just get that base moving forward. I want everybody just to try and open up an empty Maya, okay? And just reference in the character you're using. Now, if anybody is using Chris, I did repair the rig. There's a slight problem. There was a slight problem in the feet, and I put it under week 14. So if you have to update your Chris rig, you can re-reference that, and it will work. It's in the week 14 folder, okay? But open up a fresh Maya, and let's bring in a character and just try and get this forward slide. Yeah.
So I just did what I thought I'm supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that I was following this
Mhm.
cycle.
Mhm.
But I kind of not duplicated, but I made 2 full steps just because.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
2 full steps.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It just may be a difference in, are you lifting the foot up at the contact? No, it looks like you're holding it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
My step was a little hard to decipher what's the contact and what's whatever, because I made a reference at home of needing an exaggerated
Okay, we'll have to nail that down though, because we have to know exactly. Okay. Okay, so get your Maya open to just an empty rig. We're going to use the example here. The units are a value of X, so you can change your units. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to use this example here that I have on the board, and I'm going to use Chris to demonstrate it. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to move this one over. Okay, so load in your character, get the picker up. Okay, is everybody ready? Yep.
I'm trying to do the reference options to try and reference it, but I
So
can't
all you
figure it
do is you go to let's do this again. Let's just go File, Create Reference, and we want to go to this one here and just give it a name. So I just call it whatever your name is, Ashley, and then you can reference right there, and then just tell it where the reference is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is this also like actually due like tomorrow?
No.
Oh, I did the wrong thing.
No, it's not due tomorrow.
When is it?
It's going to be due next week.
Okay. Like next
Yeah.
class or
like next Thursday. Yeah.
At 11:59 or?
Yeah, it'll be the end of the day. Did I not change that date in the thing? Okay, my apologies, everybody. I thought I changed the date. I'm extending it, obviously, till next week for you guys, okay? So I must have forgot to change the assignment date. My apologies.
Actually, I tried with that quiz, but I don't think you only gave us that, right?
I give you the rig, yes.
Only Maya rig, right?
That's right, yeah.
We have to put it in the crease folder first, right?
Yeah, you can put the,
Because,
it doesn't matter for this example. Don't worry about the textures and that.
Okay.
That's fine, okay? You will be missing the picker though.
I'll change two different
Okay, so what we're going to do is very similar to what we did last week with the contact. I'm just going to show you how to set up the feet right now, though. I'm not going to do the full pose of the character. So I'm going to take the feet and I'm going to try and figure out how far I need the feet to be in as far as width. Okay, so I'm going to take each foot here and I'm going to extend it forward and backwards, right? So this one here, I'm going to go backwards. So let's say I start to go back. Okay, I'm going to go to, this is going to be my contact position. So I'm actually going to extend it further up until frame 4, but I'm going to start here just going back about 20 units to begin with. Okay, so negative 20. Now again, do the numbers that work for you. They won't be exactly the same if you're using different rigs, right? The front foot, I'm going to go forward about, let's see, about 16 units or so, right, for his width. Okay, and it will make a difference as to when the hips and that are rotated, right? So if I take my hip rotation, and I rotate my hips, say going towards my foot, right? So say I do my minus 10 going that way, it does shorten the leg, okay? And I'm just gonna key all that. Okay, so that's all I'm doing right now is I'm just putting this foot back, this foot forward, okay? And I'm just going to make sure that I'm actually moving in my local space because I want to move in local. Okay, so I have negative 20 going back here and I'm going forward 16. Okay. Now, as the character goes to the other side, I'm going to go to frame 13 and I'm just going to do the reverse of this, right? So I'm going to do on this foot, I'm going to do just negative 20. And this foot is the reverse, so 16. And then the waist would be just reversing. So I'm just going to reverse this. Okay. And then I'll just key that. Okay. And this is a 12 frame cycle. So the cycle here would be on frame 25. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same pose that's on 1. I'm going to go to 25. And I'm just going to key that as well. Okay. So the feet are just doing this back and forth. Okay. So just get that far right now. Just get that base setup going right now. I'm going to get everybody a few minutes just to lock that down. Mm-hmm. Oh. So if you two, so did you key the first position yet?
I did.
Okay. So do you have your menu up?
I don't have my picker.
So let's load that.
Okay.
Okay. And then just use the little button here to make sure you get the right name. Make sure everything's keyed, right? Let's go to the end here and just key everything again. Now, if we want to copy this, see my middle mouse here?
Yeah.
You're going to middle mouse drag to 25, right? And then you just key all.
Oh, okay. So that's what I was missing. I was just missing the key all at the end.
Yeah. Okay. Does everybody have those two positions?
I will keep the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So what next?
So you're going to go to 13, which is going to be the reverse, right? So you're just going to do the opposite on the feet and opposite on the waist.
So this one on positive.
So the back foot goes forward 16, front foot goes back 20,
Okay.
right? And then you got the opposite in the waist. And then you have 25 as a cycle. So you're going to copy 1, right? Okay. Remember that when you rotate the waist, that will change the length of the legs, right? Okay, everybody have that down now? All right. So let's take a look at just cycling these to begin with. All right. So if I want to cycle this, I'm going to go into my graph editor. Yes. Is it? Yep. Pardon? Yeah, we're just using linear right now. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to flip over to my animation here. Just look at my graph editor. And I'm going to look at my feet. So the feet are moving forward in translate Z, right? So I'm going to look at the translate Z curve, okay? This is what we have so far. We just have the foot going forward and then going backwards in that cycle, all right? Now, we're going to do a couple things here. We're going to, let's finish setting up the curve so that we have that foot hold on the ground until the down position, and then we'll lift it, which means we have to do a little bit of like configuration here, okay? So if I move forward to the down position, which is going to be on 4, right? I'm going to go forward 1, 2, 3 frames, which is on our 4th frame, right? Now, if I want the character's foot to sit on the ground instead of moving forward for those 4 frames, I'm going to push it further back, okay? So I'm going to create a key at my down position, right? And I'm going to set this key further back, okay? So I'm going to use the -30 example here that's in the PowerPoint, okay? And that's my furthest position on the ground. Okay, now, so all I'm doing is I'm having that foot continue back for 4 more frames, okay? Now, the one thing that we have to make sure of is that just like the traditional 2D pan, right, when the pan goes forward, the character is going to match his feet to the ground speed of the pan, which means that the pan has to move back at the same distance, the same time, and the same spacing. We have to do the same in 3D. So the curve cannot be an auto curve. It has to be a linear flat curve, okay? For the distance and the time is the same. So the foot going back is going to cycle through this. The front of this curve, we're going to set this up so it's on a linear tangent. So this tangent here, I'm going to go linear, and this part here of the tangent, this half, I'm going to put linear as well, okay? Now I'm going to grab this tangent and I'm going to break it with that little V break tool right there, okay? So what this gives me is a linear flat tangent that has a constant rate of speed going backwards, okay? Now, the other part of this curve that has the foot going backwards is from 13 to 25, okay? Now, this is where it gets a little tricky and a little mind-bending, okay? Even for me sometimes. This is a 12-frame cycle, okay? So our contact is on 13, but because we're holding the foot for an extra few frames to push off, don't get confused by this. All we're doing is we're saying that the foot is holding for 16 frames, but the actual cycle is still 12. So the foot is going to be in contact with the ground for a total of 16 frames as it slides backwards, okay? Now, 3 of those frames are at the front because it's a cycle, okay? The other set of frames is at this half because that's where the foot starts to slide back, okay? So this is where it gets a little funny, all right? If you look at frame 13, you can see that same foot, it moves forward to the contact point of the cycle, and then from 13 through this way, okay, it slides backwards. So what do we do when the foot's sliding on the ground? We have to make sure that the curve is linear when it's sliding on the ground, right? So I'm going to take this tangent, I'm going to break it, and I'm going to make this half linear, okay? And I'm going to make this tangent linear. Now, this point and this point are not in their final position yet, okay? Because we have to do a little calculation here, okay? Now, how many frames did I say the foot was going to be sliding on the floor for? 16 frames, okay? All right, so if I go to frame 13, and let's count 16 frames forward and see where that takes us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 would take me to 29, okay? So that means that the cycle, actually it'd be 28, right? It'd be 13 to 12. Let me just double check that math. Make sure I'm going the right distance. Yeah, it would be 28. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 would be 28, okay? That is the extra 3 frames that live here, right? So from 25, we go 1, 2, 3. That gets us to 28, which is these 3 frames. 1, 2, 3, right? All we're going to do is we're going to take this side here and we're going to temporarily put that over here so that we can work out what the position of this point should be, okay? So I'm going to go to 28 and I'm going to copy this point. Now this point, if you look here, it's negative 30 units backwards. So I can copy it or I can just create it, right? Either way is fine. If I wanted to just right click, insert key, grab this one and tell that to go to negative 30, it's the same thing as copying it, okay? And then all I'm going to do is turn that to linear, all right? Now, this point, its value is going to slightly differ, okay? Because I've now made it a total of 30 units back. When I add the front distance going forward, which is 16, that gives me a total value of 46 units. Because what I've done is I've said I'm going negative 30 units back in total. Okay, so from 0 going backwards all the way until that foot stops, it's 30 units. Going forward this way, right, the front position of the walk, so this point up here, I'm going 16 units forward, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm taking those two values from 0 back, 0 forward, and I'm adding them together. So I'm doing 30 plus 16. It's going to give me a total of 46 units. Make sense? Okay. So I'm adding those two values together, and I'm going to get this point in the calculation. So I'm going to let Maya do that for me, okay? So if I delete this on 25, make sure that these two are linear, right? I'm just going to double check, make sure they're linear, okay? If I go back to 25, and now I insert a key right there, and I look at the value of that key, now it's negative 20.8, right? It's slightly different because what it's doing is I'm letting Maya calculate for me what that position should be based on 16 frames and 48 units. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this key and I'm going to replace my key at frame 1. And the reason we're doing this is because it's cycling over and over again, right? Now, how long is the cycle? The cycle's 12 frames, which a contact is on 13, right? So what I'm doing is I'm taking this key, which from 13 to 25 is the 13 frame or the 12 frame cycle, right? So this is the 13th frame. So I'm taking the 13th frame position that I've now calculated, and I'm moving it to the first position, so those two match. Okay? That's all I'm doing here. I used this value just to get this position. This is only temporary, okay? Because this value lives here. Make sense? Okay? Now, let's do that. Let's take that key. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to Control-C, copy that. And I'm going to go to frame 1, click on my graph editor, and paste that. Okay, so if I grab that one there, you can see that that is negative 20.8 now. And I want to double check, make sure these are both linear. Right? Now, this one and this one are the same. Okay? Now, do I need the point at frame 28 now? I already have that point at frame 4, don't I? So I already have that point at frame 4. I don't need that there. That was used as a temporary measuring tool, okay? So I'm going to delete that point at frame 28. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cycle this now. Now that I have the values of the slide, I'm going to cycle the foot, okay? So I'm going to select that curve. I'm going to go to the curves post infinity, and I'm going to cycle. And I'm going to cycle that curve over and over again, okay? Now, if you don't see the cycling like this, go to View and turn on Infinity, okay? That will allow you to see the cycle, okay? Okay, so what this is telling us is I have an actual key until the end of my cycle, right? But the curve cycling over and over again shows you here that it's giving you the cycle matching at the first point, right? So we're matching the first point. Let me get rid of some stuff here. Okay, so now we have this point, which is the same as this point. This is the end of my cycle. This is the beginning of my cycle. But this to this is how many frames? 16 frames, right? But the cycle, this is where you don't want to get confused. The cycle is still going from 1 to 13, which means it's a 12-frame cycle, contacting on 13. The end of the cycle, so I'm just going to put 1 here, 13. This one right here is on what? 25, right? So it is still a 12-frame cycle. This point, which doesn't exist, it's just showing you the cycle, is sitting on frame 28, right? Which means it's this point, right? So this is the same distance as frame 28, but this is on frame 4. Yes? Yep, I know, it's confusing. It's confusing. Yep. So, this is why I told you to take notes, okay? All right, so let's look at the distance of the stride again, okay? Just to make everybody aware. We're going to do the other foot, and the other foot curve does not look exactly like this because the other foot is sliding on the other half, okay? We'll stick with this foot for now. We'll do it one more time, okay? Dabby, it's okay. Okay, we'll get through it. Okay, look at the board, everybody. Let's go through this one more time. Okay? Take a breath. You will get through this, okay? We will make it happen. All right. everybody looks at this the first time and they go, what? What the hell are you doing, right? But if you just continue to think about this in that traditional sense of the background sliding and the character matching the background, that's all we're doing. But all we're doing here is this is the foot sitting on the ground, right? All we're doing is cycling it, which means that to get that cycle to work, because it is a 12-frame cycle, right, we have to put the other half or the extra 3 frames at the front. Okay, so let's just go over the whole thing one more time, right? So first of all, we have this foot going back, right? This foot going forward. Okay, we look at the heel positions. That's where your control handles are, on the heels, okay? Now, that distance, right, if I take that down to the ground, okay, so if I look at this point, the distance from here to here, okay, just like a traditional walk cycle, okay? If I look at the position in Maya, okay, at the center, because our treadmills are on the center, that means that the grid is sitting at 0, right? So the center point right here, that's 0 units, right? I've said that the furthest point the heel goes back is going to the down position on frame 4, right? So my front foot is going a total of 16 units this way. My back foot is going a total of 30 units this way. It's taking this foot a total of 46 units when I add those together, right? So I take 30 plus 16, and I get 46, right? Whatever yours X value is, it doesn't matter. It could be 10 and 10, it could be 50 and 50. You just add those two together.
The X value is the thing that we put into the attribute.
Yeah, so this value is the translate Z value. Okay? So the translate Z of the foot going back and the front, how far the distance is forward. Those two values, right? Give you that total number. That's the difference, right? That's how many units the foot needs to be locked to the ground for the slide. Now, we have the total distance, but then we also have the frame length. How many frames the foot actually needs to sit on the floor, right? So, to keep the foot on the floor beyond the 12-frame cycle, okay, this is where it gets a little confusing, because if you look at your Richard Williams book, it has this position, and then he goes straight into lifting this foot off the ground, right? But technically, in a natural walk cycle, we actually push ourselves off the ground. We lift our heel and push ourselves, which means the foot actually stays on the ground for a couple more frames, right? So the cycle itself is still a 12-frame cycle, but the foot, to get that little lift off the ground and push us forward, is actually taking, right? I'm going to talk about frames here, okay? And actually, let me take this, and we're going to just make this just the one leg, okay? So we're going to go, so this is let's say this is the right leg. I'm just going to put the right leg here as well, so we get the same leg, okay? So we're looking at the same leg here, okay? Right, okay? The amount of distance that right leg takes to get all the way back is 46 units, and it also takes a total of 16 frames to go back to that point. So it takes 16 frames to go from here to here, sliding backwards. Okay, does that make sense so far? Okay, because this point here to this point in the cycle is a total of 16 frames.
So you're counting how long it takes from the middle point to that last little point and then back to the fourth frame.
Right, because from here to 25 is only 12 frames, technically 13 on the contact, right? So, and then we have an additional 3 frames here, which gives us 16, right? So from 13 to 25 is 13 frames, and then we add 3 at the front, which gives us 16, right? Because it's in a cycle, okay? This is why it looks confusing, but if you can picture in your mind this, right? All we're doing is this. We're going from frame 1 to frame 16, and it's going a total of 46 units, right? The distance it's traveling backwards. All we're doing is taking that and just cutting it and moving part of that back here, right? Because it's cycling over and over again, okay? So it looks funny the way that it's set up here, but it's just this in its cycle, okay? Now, we have to do the same thing on the other foot, which looks a little different in the graph editor because it's sliding back at different frames, right? This foot here slides back starting at frame 13 and ends the cycle on frame 4. But the other foot is going to start sliding backwards from frame 1, right? And it's going to slide backwards until frame 16 because it's the other side, right? So let's take a look at that. So if I look at my other foot, let me just open up my my window here again. Okay, so if I'm looking at the other foot, all right, let's take a look at that and see how we get that to slide backwards. Okay, so it looks the same as our other one, right? We're going to look at translate Z, okay? And right now we have this first point, 16 units in front, right? We have this point going back to 20 units, but technically we're going to slide the foot back further before it pushes us off the ground, right? Which means we have to add the same buffer of frames in to push us off the ground. So it's still going to be 16 frames, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, here's where the foot slides back, right? It slides back to here on 13. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Same number, right? Same number of frames. I'm going to insert a key, and I'm going to tell this key to go back the same number of units, which was -30, okay? Because that is the same number of units as the other foot on the other side. Okay, so that foot goes back. It starts, let's just take a look at our graph editor here. It starts 16 units forward, translate Z. So let me go back here and I'll show you, right? 16 units forward. And then up to frame 16, it goes 30 units back to the furthest point. Okay, now this side is actually more straightforward than the other side because we're not cycling over it, okay? So I'm going to do the front part of this the same way, right? Because the front part is the part that sits on the floor, right? When it sits on the floor, it has to be linear. It cannot have a value that is making it slower or faster. It has to be a linear curve, okay? So I'm going to get Maya to help me figure out the value of this the same way I did the other side. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just temporarily delete that one. Okay, and I'm going to set these two to linear. So this one's linear. This one, I'm going to break it. I'm going to set this half to linear. Okay, because that's how long it's on the floor, right? And I'm going to now, Maya's done the work for me. It's calculated this position for me, right? I've said that this value is 16. This value is 30. And if I insert a key at 13, right click, insert, this value, look at the magic, right? Negative 20.8, exactly as the other side, right? So that foot is going to stay on the floor for the exact same length of time and the exact same distance. Okay? Now, that's all we need to worry about with that foot, because now you can see, right? It's going to continue it's going to start lifting after 16, but the distance is the same. Okay? And it's linear. So all we did on the other foot is we took that side, cut off those 3 frames, and stuck them up here. Go back to this foot, still 16 frames. There's our 13 frames and our extra 3 frames, and it's just extending for the length of the 16 frames on the ground. Okay? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. No, it depends on the character. You got to remember the distance back is X, right? It's unknown based on the character that you're using, right? You may have a character that has a stride length of 50. You may have a character that has a stride length of 20. Okay, the stride length meaning from between the front foot and the back foot at the furthest points. Now, here's where this stuff becomes important. Okay, I did a show one time where I had large characters and small characters, right? One character would take like a stride with 10 units and the other character would take a stride at 50 units, but they had to walk together, right? So if you're figuring out as a show, if you're saying that these characters are partners in crime, right? They always have to walk together down the street, right? It's Mike and Sully from Pixar, right? They're always walking together. Sully has a much bigger stride than Mike, right? But Mike has a quicker stride, right? They have to move the same number of units forward at the same time, right? Which means that Mike's stride is going to be shorter, but his amount of time that he takes to go in that stride is faster. So that means his speed walking forward has to be faster, but he has to move the same number of units as Sully does in one stride. Right? This is where it gets tricky, right? Because you have to match the characters as a team if they're going to always be walking together, right? So this is all like pre-planning before it goes into any kind of show. If you're going to be putting cycles into a show, one, you have to make sure that the feet lock to the ground by making sure that the measurements are done correctly. And you have to consider who they're acting with. If there's characters that have vastly different stride lengths, you have to take that into consideration so that when you build the other characters' walks, they can walk together, okay? Then you would hand those cycles out on a show and you would say this character, does X number of units in 16 frames so that the animator can work that out, okay? So that's why this stuff matters. Now, to have the character, when the foot moves forward, right? So let's look at this this foot here, though, this is going to be Chris's left foot, right, going forward here. When the foot is moving forward, do we have to worry about the foot locking to the ground? Anybody? When the foot's in the air, we don't have to worry about it locking to the ground, do we? So this is where you get interest in your walk. When I lift my foot and I pull it through the walk cycle, I can have that go fast and kick it out, right? I can have it drag his feet, right? But I can go like, right? I can have him do this, right? It doesn't matter what I do to this part of the curve because the foot is in air. As long as this part is locked to the ground, I can do whatever I want with this part and make it drag his toes or go really fast through the cycle. So this part doesn't have to be linear. This part can be whatever it wants, okay? Now, to make the character move forward in a cycle, think about this, the node at the bottom here. What we're doing here is we're translating the node forward like we would be panning the background backwards in a traditional animation. So if I have the character's stride length for 46 units, right, or let's put it in simpler terms, let's do like traditional animation. Like if I have the character's foot sliding back 5 centimeters on a piece of paper, right, that means the background would have to move back 5 centimeters, the same number of frames, right? So if I have the character treadmilling on spot, the background has to move 5 centimeters so that the character's foot stays locked to the pan going backwards, okay? We're doing the same thing. All we're doing is we're saying the foot is going to move backwards whatever that X value is. In my case, it's 46 frames. That means that the node on the floor is going to move forward 46 units in the same number of frames. And they're going to cancel each other out, right? Because if the foot is moving backwards and this is moving forward and they're both exactly the same speed and exactly the same length, the foot will stick to the ground because they're canceling each other out. Okay? So, what I'm going to do, I want to make sure that I do make this curve on my left foot also cycle. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to, just like I did the other foot, I'm going to grab this curve, go to curves, post infinity, and I'm going to cycle. Right, so this one looks like that. I could also cycle it backwards as well. Right, I could go here, I could go pre-infinity, and I could cycle it backwards. And it could go forever. Right? Yeah, different timing, right? Yeah. Okay, so now that these are cycling, okay, I'll grab my other foot here. I'll do the same thing. I'll grab my curve on the other foot and I'll cycle it backwards so I have both going, right? It goes backwards. I'm going to take my node on the bottom. It sits right at the 0 value, right? Its center point is right at 0. You can see, I look here, right? It's sitting at 0, okay? So I'm going to start at frame 1, click on my translate Z because that's when I'm going forward, okay? I'm going to just delete that extra key at the end there. I don't need that. Now, the cycle is 13 frames, right? But how long is the foot staying on the floor? 46 units, right? But how long in time? 16 frames. So that means I have to have the node move forward to 16. Right? Okay. So I'm going to remove the key here at 13 because I don't need that one. I'm going to go to 16, and I'm going to have translate Z value move forward a total of 46 frames, and I'm going to key that. Okay? Now, will this curve work the way it is? Will this curve work the way it is right now? Right, Debbie, why? It needs to be linear. Why is that? Right, which means they both have to move equal distance, right? So it has to be a linear curve. Okay? So I'm going to grab this curve, and I'm going to set it to linear so that it's flat. Okay? Now, if I just look at the one stride, right, my feet stick to the floor. Okay? Now, if I want to have the character continue to move forward, I have to set the base node to cycle forward, don't I? Now, I don't want the feet are repetitively cycling, right? They're going all the way through, and then they're going back to 1, and then they're going all the way through, and then they're going back to 1, right? But this node here is the only exception, because what I want this node to do is I want it to go 46 units, and then I want to start at 1 again, but at 46 units, because I want it to continue to go forward. So it's going to go 46 plus 46, right? Which gives you like, what, 92, right? I don't have to worry about that number, but I'm going to tell Maya to do that. Okay? So what I do is I select the curve. I go to curves, post infinity. I'm going to cycle with offset. And what that does, instead of going back here, dropping value and going back down to 0, it stays at this value. Make sense? Okay. So when I hit that button, it continues to go up because it's going 46 plus 46, 92 plus 46, and continues on and on and on. Okay. I can do the same thing going backwards. Pre-infinity, cycle with offset, goes down. Same thing. Negative 42, negative 92, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So now, when the character walks forward, the feet do not slide. They stick to the ground. Okay? So, just to review that again, we have this foot. Here's the translate Z. It is going linear, and it's going for 16 on frames on the ground. Right, so there's my point going back. Now, when the foot goes forward, I can change that value to whatever I want, right? If I want the foot to pick up and go faster, all I have to do is take this curve, raise the value of it, and it's going to pull that foot through the cycle faster, right? So it's going to pull it faster here now because the value here to here is now going greater distance. So I'm telling that foot to go faster as it's in the air, right? It's going to kick it through faster. If I wanted to go slower, I could do the reverse. I could take this curve and flatten it out, and it would drag its toes because it would be holding back, right? So you could do either or, right? So if I had this curve and I lower it like this, you can see the foot gets pulled backwards, right? I'm not going to go below my furthest point value, but now I'm going to drag my toes, right? So now my toes are dragging and then they go faster forward. Make sense? So the speed of the foot going through when it's in the air, you can play with. Okay, same with the other foot. If I grab it, translate Z, and here is where it's going to go through the air on this side. I can speed it up or I can slow it down. Speed it up, it's going to go faster as it's going through here, okay? Put this on real time. Okay, so there is the feet locked to the ground, okay? Now, we haven't done any heel raises or feet lifting yet, right? This is the basics of the slide and how to translate it forward. Now, what controls are we going to use to have the heels in that lift and rise through the cycle? What controls are we going to use? Yeah. So say that I want the foot, as it's going back, to have the heel rise up like this. It's the foot roll, right? Now, as I'm going to use the foot roll to get it to here, but then when I lift the toes off the ground, I'm going to zero the foot roll out, and I'm going to use the rotation of the foot. I'm going to swing it through, get it to the ground, and I'm going to use the foot roll here again when it touches the ground. And then I'm going to foot roll down to the bottom. And the reason for that is because I don't want the rotation of the foot control to be doing this when it's on the ground slide, because then it will slide. Okay? So let's go through that part. Everybody should have lots of notes by now, especially Annabelle that's getting up right now. Okay. So, if this foot, let's start with this foot. We're going to look at our controls here. I scroll down, I get foot roll, right? I'm going to animate the foot roll going back to its highest position to frame 4. So let's start there, okay? So at frame 1, I'm going to start this foot to roll up because it's going to have some... Now, this is the thing too. See when the foot goes up here? Let me go in here. In here a little closer, okay? So you can see right now the leg is overstretched, okay? But if I was to virtual slide this, wait, I'm just using my middle mouse and scrolling it like this. Okay, you can see where the knee pops right there. Okay, I want to make sure that the knee is not doing this. I don't want the knee to overstretch. I want the knee to be comfortable. So I'm going to have it when it starts to break right about there. Okay, we don't want to overstretch our knees because that's when you're going to get knee pops in your animation. Okay, so the first key that I'm going to set is here. Okay, now again, the values vary from rig to rig. Okay, so I'm going to focus this. Now, the foot is going to roll. Now you can see it's going back here, right? So when it gets to 4, I'm going to, again, keep rolling that forward, right? So it's going to continue to roll in. The toes are going to lift, okay? And I'm going to key that position at frame 4. Now, you can see that frame 1 to 4, this doesn't have to be linear. This can be a Bezier curve. This can be going slower or faster. But you can see the foot lifting or rolling off the ground, okay? I'm not popping the knee, okay? Now, on frame 5, right, I don't want to use the ball roll anymore. I want to use the rotation of the foot as it's in air, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zero out the ball roll, and I'm going to actually use the foot control now. So I'm going to grab the actual IK foot, I'm going to lift it up, and I'm going to rotate it, okay? And I'm going to continue to use this. I'm going to just key. I'm just going to be very specific about what I key, right? So this is my first key after my down position, right? Because my down position was on 4, right? So all I'm doing is I'm setting keys on 4, the down position. Frame 5 is when I'm leaving the down position going into the mid stride. So I have to tell Maya that now I'm going to transition from my foot roll to the foot lifting off the ground going into the mid stride. Okay, so we still have our main positions. Okay, we still have 1, 4, 7, 10, 13, which is our contact, down, mid, up, and contact. We still have those positions. We're just now manipulating Maya to say, have that foot roll go to the down position, and then 5, I'm going to lift the foot off the floor, right? So I'm going to key translate Y and rotate X, because those are the two that I affected, right? Now you can see right now, if I look at these two, I only have it on 5, right? Now, if you're on your posed out version, you probably have keys on 4 already. I'm going to go back to 4, and I'm just going to zero these two out because I don't want that on 4. This, you can see what's happening to the ball roll, right? So I'm going to 0 Y, and I'm going to 0 R to go back to that ball roll, okay? That should be flat on the floor. So this part here is on the floor, right? So between these two keys, I want to make sure that these two handles are flat on the floor. I can do whatever I want when I lift it up, okay? But now the character is going to ball roll and then lift. Ball roll, lift, okay? Now, as we go through the walk, I need to go through the mid stride. I can put keys here to whatever I want. If I want to have the foot go faster, slower, I can do that. If I want the foot to, maybe I'm going to drag it back a little bit here. Maybe I say, let's put some keys on my rotate Y and X at frame 7, which is our mid. And maybe I have the foot drag a little more. So maybe I rotate it, right? Maybe I drop the foot down a little bit more or lift it up. I can do whatever I want, right? That's the mid stride, okay? It doesn't matter what I do to it in air. I'm just working with these two curves though, okay? So now you can see that my character lifting his foot, going through the mid stride. Now I'm going to come forward, right? Frame 10 would be my up key. Let's rework that position, okay? So now I'm going to look at translate Y, translate X, Z, and translate rotate X. These are the 3. I can put a key here and move it to whatever I need to. So I'm going to key these 3 because it's in air. I can do whatever I want. And I'm going to manipulate it. So I'm going to grab that, and I think I want it to have a little taller. Maybe I pull the foot back a little bit because I don't want it to come through all the way. Maybe I'll put a little more rotation on it. Okay, something like this. I can do a little toe drag. I'll get to that after, okay? But you can see I'm positioning my up position where I want that foot to be. Okay, my knee is not popping. Now, one thing that you may run into is you see right here where the foot leaves the ground and goes into that lift. Look at how far the knee pulls forward there. You see that? It's actually a little bit of a pop right now. Okay, we want to try and align it so the spacing that happens between here and here is kind of the same spacing that's happening between 3 and 4. See how far the knee goes here? If we look at just the knee, see that distance? Okay, if we go 4 to 5, see how greater the distance is there? 4 to 5 is a lot further. That means that the knee is all of a sudden going to pop forward. So I'm going to control my value of Z there as well. So I'm going to actually key Z, and I'm going to control that so that I don't get that pop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the value forward, and I'm going to flip back and forth until I get the right amount of space as he's pulling his leg up so it doesn't look like it's popping up. Okay? So again, it's controlling all the different areas. Okay, if I want that to not quite go out as high, I can do that as well, right? I can take this and I can maybe lower the toes. Okay, now this distance going from here to here, again, I can control that. I can go in here and I can slow that down or speed that up. Okay? So I'm developing these and flipping through the animation. Now here's another thing. See the toes are going through the ground slightly here? I don't want the toes to go through the ground there. That's my translate Y. So I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to lift that up a little bit. Maybe lift this up a little bit. Maybe even pull this up a little bit here so that it doesn't go through the ground. Okay? So I can control the toes. Okay, so you can see again, there's a little bit of a pop here now, right, from here to here. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to fix that. Back to my Z. If I find that this one's popping too much, I can insert a key here. There's nothing wrong with that. I can then control that part. And I'm going to look at the spacing of the knee as it's going forward to see if there's any odd space poppings going on there, right? So you can see that this one right here is a bit funny right now because it's going close here, and then it's a little too close there, and then it kind of pops forward there. So that means I need to change this one. Right? And you're just going to play with this until you get the right amount of space for it doesn't stick. It continues to move forward, but you get that nice pull through there. And again, just flip through it and watch it go through that spacing. Make sure the knee doesn't pop and it has a continuous spacing. It shouldn't lock. If you end up with this position and then your next position here looks something like, like this, so that it looks like the knee is actually going backwards or something, that's wrong, right? We have to make sure that the knee is continuously moving forward through the stride. So that's why I'm flipping through it to make sure the knee is continuously moving forward. Okay? Now, when we go into the contact, okay, we then go back to our ball roll. Okay? So I'm going to have the foot start to go into its ball roll before it gets to 13, but I'm going to have the ball roll at 13 in its highest position, right? So the foot's not going to be flat on 13. I'm going to go into the ball roll, and I'm going to lift it up, right? Now, this affects the waist too, right? Because right now you can see there's a little bit too much height on the character. This leg is actually overstretched a bit here. So after I do this a first pass on the feet, I might go in and play with the waist as well to get the proper height on the legs. And we'll do that next, okay? So the ball roll is now activated on frame 13. Now, what happens when the foot goes down to the ground? Right? You walk, you go, right? You get that slap on the ground. How long does that take? No. How long does it take for the foot to make contact and come down? Frame or two, right? Not very long. I would say about 2 frames. And you're going to favor, right, the top. Is because you want it to slap down to the ground, which means you're going to have, if it's this high, you might have a favor here for the first frame, and then the second one is on the ground. So it's favoring out and then snaps down. Okay? So I'm going to put a key on frame 15 of the foot slapping down. So this is going to zero out. Now, I can control the spacing from 13 to 15, right? Right now, Maya's just giving me a generic number, but if I go into 14, I can insert a key, and I can say, let's favor the up position, right? So I get a slight favor out, and then it slaps down. That's going to give me the toes slapping down. Now, going backwards, I don't want the ball roll in here, right? As the foot's going forward, So in my up position, frame 10, I don't want any ball roll there at all, do I? Because I'm using the foot rotation at frame 10. So I'm going to zero out the ball roll at that point. So now from frame 5 all the way through to frame 10, there is no ball roll, right? From frame 10 going forward, you can control this. You can control how fast the character throws his toes out, okay? So if my up position is at 10, and I know that my toes are going to be out at 13, I can go into any area in here and control how far that ball roll or how fast that ball roll gets flipped up, okay? So if I go into, say, frame 12, I can put a key here, and I can control how much ball roll I want to interject there to then have it kind of flip up. See that? Okay. Now, the foot is going to roll into the down position from frame 25. So I know that I want the ball roll to be at this value, frame 1, at frame 25, right? Because the value has to cycle. So at 25, we've got a 0 of the ball roll all the way through on the floor, okay? I know that I don't want the ball roll to start happening until it starts to look like the lag is getting stretched. Okay? So I'm going to pick a position probably around frame 20 or 21 to keep the foot on the floor before the ball starts to lift on the foot, depending on your character. Okay? So I'm going to put a key on frame 21 by inserting a key, and I'm going to have the foot exactly hold its value of 0 from the time it slaps on the ground until it starts to roll up. And I know that from frame 25 to frame 1, these two have to match. So I'm going to take this key, I'm going to select it, copy it, Control C, and I'm going to paste it, Control V, at frame 25, which is going to cycle that position. Now, if I need to play with that value, I can, right? I can continue to go in there and work it. If I feel like it's the stretch in the leg or something's not working, I can go in there and change that. If I wanted to change this position, I would also need to change this position. Right? Frame 1 and frame 25 are the same. So if I wanted to have this go up a little more, I'd have to do both. Now, this is going to cycle. So I'm going to grab this curve for the ball roll. I'm going to go into curves, post infinity, cycle, and it's going to do that going forward. I can also do it pre-infinity, cycle, right? Now you can see here, if I look at frames 1 and frame 25, you can see that right now it's a flat tangent and there's a little bulge in the curve here. You see that? But if I was to grab 1, hold down Shift, grab frame 25, go back to 1, grab this handle, then go back up to 25 and grab the outside handle, I can middle mouse drag them both together and straighten out that tangent. Okay? So when it cycles, it will work smoothly. Now, one thing I do have to do is I also have to cycle the translate Y and the translate X of the foot value. Okay? So I'm going to go look at those. My translate Y is this value going up, right? And then I have my translate X, which is the rotation. I haven't cycled these over yet, okay? But they are both going to hold as the foot is on the floor, right? They're going to hold at a value of 0 until 25. And then they're going to pick up over here, and they're going to go to 4, and then they're going to lift, which means I have to cycle this. So I'm going to take these two values, grab them, go to curves, post-infinity cycle, do the same thing, pre-infinity cycle, okay? And there is the cycle of that foot, okay? So as he's lifting his foot forward, he's going to go through the cycle and lift the foot, okay? So if I play that, okay? Now, it's not perfect yet, right? We still have to go in there and smooth out those knees and stuff, okay? Because there's popping there right now. But that gets us the basic movement on the foot. So it's matching to the ground, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to apply the waist fix for the down position, the up position, and the rotations of the waist to make sure those are working, right? So what happens at the mid position for the waist? The mid position, yes. It's not the highest position. The up position or frame 10 would be the highest position, right? Frame, if I have a contact position, what is my hips doing? They're tilted this way, aren't they? They're going towards the front foot. They're rotating this way, right? But as far as like this value, they are level, right? If I go into the mid position, what happens? My hips rotate back this way, so that they're level, flat, like going this way, but now they're tilting this way because this foot is pushing this part of the hip bone up, whereas the weight of this foot is dragging this hip bone down. So they're tilting this way, but they've straightened out this way, right? So that means that I have to go in and I have to work those values. Now, it's easier to kind of work one tangent at a time, right? So if I go back to, let's start with the Y position or the translate Y. When I go from my contact into that down position, the hips do what? They drop, right? So the Y has to go from here down, and then I go into the contact, which goes back up to neutral. And then as I go through, I actually push up on the toes, and I go up, right? So the lowest point of the Y is on the down, back to the contact, which is 0 on the passing, and then I push up as I go through on frame 10. So we get, so frame 1, here, let me get a different marker. Okay, so frame 1, we have contact, right? Frame 4, we have the down position. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to chart it, okay? So this is our down, right? So our Y, if this is, if we're looking at TY, right? We're looking at this, it's going to go down like this, right? And then our next position, 7, it's going to go to our mid position, which is going to go back up to there, which means the value is going to go back to 0 on that Y, okay? It's going to go negative here. Then on frame 10, that's our up position. So this is our mid, right? Mid. And then our up position, it's going to go up. So it's going to keep going up like that. Then on our next 13, which is our contact, goes back down to that neutral position, right? That same position there. So this is contact, right? So this position, and this position have the same TY value. This position has a negative value, and this position has a positive value up. So let's put some numbers in here, okay? So let's say that we have this sitting at 0, this sitting at -2, this sitting at 0, this sitting at +2, and this sitting at 0 for a value of ty. That's an example, right? Now, you may have a different set of numbers if the waist feels like it's too high, right? We may not start at 0 because the waist might be popping the knees. So we may start the waist lower. We may say that this first value is actually -2 because we have to drop the waist a little bit for the knees don't look like they're popping, which means that this would be then -4, this would be -2, this would be 0, and this would be -2. So your contact, mid, and contact have the same value, right? But the down position drops and the up position raises. So that gives you your up and down in your walk, your simple walk, right? Now, we're not going into like double ball bounces and things like that. That's a whole other story. Yes?
Okay, so walks for short. We're going to be manipulating the translate by and like any of like anything.
This is your root joint, okay? We're talking about the root controller here, okay? So there's 3 different controllers on that waist, isn't there? There's the root controller, and then you have the pelvic controller. The pelvic controller is where you're going to put the rotations. We're going to keep them separate, okay? So the root controller is going to do our TY up and down. What else is it going to do? What happens as we walk? If I look at my character, right, I'm looking at him like straight forward, right? So he's got like 1 foot back, right? If I'm looking at like him looking straight forward here, as I move, I'm going to exaggerate this for it kind of looks like, you know, like this foot here, and then this foot's like back here. Or no, this foot's actually raising, sorry. So it's going to be like, right? The body puts this pelvis, should draw that like that. It goes up like that, and it puts the weight from here up, right? So it's pushing up this way, but it's also going this way, right? So this is TY, this is translate X, right? Because you're going to also go back and forth in the mid-stride position. So when we go into mid-stride, right? So when we go through the mid-stride, our body balances over the foot that is on the ground, which means we go this way in the waist. When we translate onto this one, we go to this one, we go this way, go the other way, right? So you're going to have a back and forth value of like maybe 5 and then -5, right? Back, forth, back. It's a cycle, okay? The contact would have a value of Tx at 0, right? This may be a Tx of 5 on this side. Yes? Okay. So that is on the root. So we have the Ty and the Tx on the root. Now, we also have, let me get the name, just make sure I'm getting the name right. If we look at the character, I also have this controller here, okay, which is, what do they call this one? It's the hips controller, okay? So the hip controller now, this one here, which is, it looks like this banana, right? This is your root. This is your hips. You're going to put the rotations, right? Rotate is going to be on the hip. Okay? So your rotate X and Y, or X and Z are going to be on the hips. And that's the rotation of this and this. Okay, so we separate those two out to simplify it when we're looking in the graph editor. So I know that my translates are on my root and my rotates are on my hips. Okay, it's easier to simplify that if we just separate those two out. So, yes? For which? The hip? The root? You can also add, so that's something that I usually add after I get the base done. So if I want to be like more extreme in my walk or like goofy or something like that, and I want to have the feet like rotate like this and kick out or something, you can do that for sure. But it's not going to affect anything on the floor. It is only going to affect when you pick the foot up, isn't it? Now I can rotate if I want to have the foot out like this and hold that through the step, I can rotate it out because that's going to be just held, right? I'm going to hold like rotate 10 or something going X that way, and it's just going to hold. And then when I pick it up, I could then like maybe I pull it back and pull it forward. And I'm going to cycle again to rotate 10, right? So that's going to be a held value, right? But I usually add those more in the polish because also you could have depending on your character again, when the character lifts his foot and goes through the middle, you could have the foot go out, swing in, out, swing in. Or you could have the foot very much inside, right? Maybe it's, you're doing a model or something. I don't know, like it depends on the character type you're animating on how they're going to, if it's a big cowboy, he's like, whatever it may be, you're going to then, when the foot is up, you would have the foot swing out further. And it's not going to affect the foot on the ground. You can, or you can, like I said, I'll just do it on this one to show you. So we have this foot here right now lifting up and moving forward, right? If I want to take that foot and have it have a slight rotation or anything like that, I'm going to look at the rotate value. Okay, I'm going to look at the object rotate. So this is Y for this character, which means it's going to be this rotate Y, right? So this value here. I can just have that at whatever value I choose. So I can say do something like this, right? It's not going to change value as it's on the ground. It's going to stick on the ground. It's only going to change as it picks it up. So as it's sitting on the ground, which means from 13, okay, if I want, let me put this in focus. If I want this value on 13, I'm going to put that there. And I want to make sure that stays. I see how it does this. It rotates. I don't want it to do that, right? So I want to make sure that stays the same all the way to 25. So I'm going to copy that, paste that there. Okay, so that when it's on the ground, I have that rotation out, right? But it's not moving, it's sticking, right? But if I want to, during the lift, if I want that foot to swing back in because it's in the air, I can do that, right? Because it's in the air. I can move that back in. I could do whatever I want in the air, again, because it's in the air, okay? Now, I don't want it to move this part here. See how it's, because I have that push to frame 4. I want to make sure that is still solid. So I'm going to actually copy the value from frame 1, right? I'm going to put that there. And I think I put a little bit of rotation on my Z here too, right? I want to make sure those are flat so that it doesn't rotate as it's moving up off the ground, and then it's going to pick it up and go back to that. Now, if I want the foot to like rotate in here, I could do that. So it kind of lifts it through and then kicks it out, right? You can do whatever you want in air as long as it's solid on the ground. Okay? Yep.
tangents. So in this case, should I like zero those out and
The foot roll?
yeah.
Yeah, you're going to use ball roll when the foot is on the ground. You're going to use rotates of the actual IK handle when it's in the air. You flip between the two because you don't want to use if you use the foot roll when you're on the floor, right, that is going to cause it to slide. Okay, so just use the ball roll on the floor. Again, we're separating the value so it's not on the placement, but it's on just the ball roll. We're separating the value so we're not having it cause an issue. Okay. And usually this is what we try and do when we're animating rigs is we try and separate the values onto different controllers. The same with the pelvis, right? If I want to keep it simple, I'm doing just the up and down and the side to side with the root. And then on the pelvic rotations, I'm separating those rotations down to that pelvis and doing those on that so that it simplifies the controls. I know that if I rotate my root, my whole upper body is going to do this. But if I just keep the rotation on the pelvis, it's just going to rotate the pelvis. And I'm not that movable. I can't do that. Okay. But the upper body is going to stay solid, right? So it helps to separate those out. Okay. Same thing with the feet. The feet, we can rotate all of this and do whatever we want in air. You can get Goofy to throw his foot backwards in air, right? But when it's on the ground, those stay put. And then we zero those values so that they stick to the ground. Okay, so again, I can rotate the foot out like this on the ground, but it's going to stay there until I lift the foot, and then I'm going to rotate and do whatever I want. Okay, it's very important to separate those out and make sure those are set up properly. Okay, so let's go back to our waist for a second. Okay, so I'm going to grab my root, and let's put some TY in there. Right, so again, you have your down position, your up position. So let's start on our down position. I know the character is going to go down. So I'm going to drop him down a little bit. Right, I'll exaggerate this a bit just for the sake of the movement. Right, so he's going to go down. Right, when he goes up into his mid 7, he's going to go back to the neutral position. I'm just going to copy and paste that position. When he goes up in his up position at 10, this can go up. Now I can use foot roll there if I need to, but I'll show you a trick where you don't have to, okay? And then as it comes back down, it goes back to the same position we started at. Just like I showed you on the board there, there's our curve, okay? Now, if we feel that this position has the legs overstretched, all we do is we grab the entire curve and we pull it down until we don't get the knees popping. Now, we don't want the front knee to look like this. Okay, that's wrong. The front knee has to be as straight as possible without popping the knee. Okay, so if that is overstretching, that is where it starts to soften right there. Just have it there. Okay? Now, you can see there we have the other leg popping, which we'll go in and we'll fix with the ball roll. Okay? But now we have the down, up, contact. Okay? Now, this side is going to be an exact copy of this side. Right? Because it is the exact same movement from stride to stride. Okay, so I don't need this key because all I have is one stride here. 1 to 13 is 1/2 of the stride, right? I can actually just take this and I could just cycle it if I wanted to. And I could control what these look like, right? So again, if I want to control these tangents, select 1, select 13, grab this handle, grab the outside handle, and rotate them together. Okay, get nice smooth, and all it's doing is going up and down forever, right? It's going to do the same thing backwards. Curves, pre-infinity, cycle, does the same thing. So the character is going to go up and down through his walk. Okay? Now, let's say we want to add, we'll come back to that other foot problem in a minute, but you can see it's working fine on the foot that we've animated. Got a little bit of pop right here. That would be controlled by the ball roll. Okay, so if I have the ball roll going through here, puts his foot down, goes into this. Now we have to fix this pop here a little bit, and we'll control that again with the ball roll and the waist. Okay, but as it's going through here, you can see it's overstretching a bit there. We go in and we control the point at which the ball roll starts. Okay, so if I go back to my foot that I've been working on, and I look at that ball roll, you can see it hasn't started moving from that 0 yet, right? But if I wanted to, I could increase that. So I get a little bit of a ball roll, soften that knee out a little bit, okay? And just go back here, maybe to there, maybe 2 frames back, 1 frame, 2 frames back. I don't need that ball roll there, right? So I just zero it out there instead. Okay, so now I've just made it so that I can control that lag from not overstretching as much through the cycle. And I can go back in and I can play with that as much as I need to, right? So if I need a little more ball roll there, I can go ahead and change that. Okay. Now, you can see that I changed the angle at the end here, this to this and this to this. So I'd want to make sure that those are aligned, right? So in what I should have done, actually, let me just back up here. Instead of like grabbing this one and just moving it, I should have actually grabbed both of them, right? So I should have grabbed this one, this handle, and this handle, and just rotate them together so they move the same. Okay? And I'm just controlling the knee as it's going through that stride. Now, I still have more work to do on the waist, so I don't want to go crazy on trying to fix all that right now, because what other movement do I need on the waist? Anybody? Dabby, what happens in the mid-stride? What happens if I have, it's level, it's not going this way anymore, right? But in the mid-stride, what happens? This hip gets pushed up because it's taking the weight. This hip drops because it's holding the weight. So I got to do this, right? So that is going to be on our hips rotation, right? So if I go to hips, I'm going to look at, in this case, my rotate Z, okay? So let's go to our rotate Z. There's no information on here yet, right? And I'm going to put some keys here to give me some rotation. So I know that at my contact, I'm not going to have any Z rotation, right? It's going to be neutral. When I get to my mid-stride 7, it's going to rotate towards the leg that it's on the ground. So let's rotate that up. So I get some lift in that knee, right? Let me just refocus that with F. So I know there's a 0 here, lifts up here, right? I'm going to take that key, and you can see I can just simplify this value. Again, I don't have to have a weird value. I could just say this is like 15 or something, okay? And then I know that I'm going to hit the mid-stride on the other leg in this case. So I'm going to go back to 0 at 13, contact, and then my mid-stride on this leg, right, is going to be at 19. So here, I'm going to have the exact same value, but just on the other side. So I'm going, instead of doing 15, right, I'm going to insert a key here, and I'm going to do this one at negative 15. Now, the value in the middle here, I'm just going to rotate that so that it's straight. And the 2 endpoints, I'm going to do that as well, but I'm going to cycle this first. So I'm going to grab that curve and cycle it. do both forward and backward, cycle. And I grab one, I grab the end, grab the handle, grab the other handle, and I rotate them together to clean that up. So I get the hips now rotating on the Z back and forth. Okay. Now, if I look at my R on the hips, okay, I need to rotate that as well. So I have, this is going to be the opposite though. This is going to be the contact position, right? So at the contact position, I'm going to rotate the hips toward the front foot, right? So this one here, if I rotate, let me grab those hips again. So my value on Y here, I'm just going to make this simple. I'm going to put like, say I do negative 25 this way. Okay. Then I would have to do the same on this one. This one would have to be negative 25 or whatever I put it to be. Okay. Actually, I'm going to, or sorry, 25 positive, my mistake. Okay. And then I would do the same, make sure that the end point is the same value. So on 25, this value would have to match. So it'd be negative 25 or whatever yours is, right? And I just get that simple curve going through there, right? So I get this back and forth motion in the hips. And I'm going to cycle that the same way. So I'm going to grab this, curves, post infinity. I can keep this open actually just to see it here. Cycle, and I could do the same thing with the other direction, right? So I could do this, cycle, and then these are flat. So they're going to match. Okay? And all I'm doing is I'm slowly building it up. Now I haven't done the other foot here, as you can see, so the knees aren't matching, right? But I'm slowly going through here and matching up my motion. Now, for instance, this knee right here is popping forward quite a bit, right? So I'm going to have to go in there and try and soften that so I don't get that sharp pop right there. Okay, so there's various ways that I can control it. I can control it with the waist. I could control it with the heel roll. There's different ways that will affect that, okay? So let's pick one. Let's maybe try you doing the waist first, okay? So if I grab my waist and maybe I pull this back a little bit, see I get more of a straight there? Okay, then I just make sure that I reflect that in my movement. So if I'm going to put this to maybe 8, I just have to make sure that these two are also negative 8, right? Because I'm just changing the values. And now I've got less of a bent leg as it goes in there. Now this pop here can be a pain to deal with sometimes, okay? This little pop right here. Now, again, we can control it with various things. So we can control it with the waist and we control it with the heel roll. So we can start with those if we want. So again, this position here. Okay, let me just reopen that for a sec. It's not moving for me. There it is. Okay, so this pop here, I could pull that waist back a little bit, right? That might control it a little bit, but it makes a bit of an odd curve in here, so I don't really like that solution. So I could try doing the heel roll, see what that does. That straightens it out a little bit, right? But again, it doesn't give me exactly what I want, okay? So I see I get that big pop in here that I want to control a little more, right? So now, we can't control it if we don't have the ability to control it to the degree that we want to. We can use the little helpers on the knees. Now we have to animate those frame by frame, but they give us the ability to kind of get us over a hump when we need to, okay? So if I grab the knee ribbon, which is this guy right here, okay, so this little red one right here, it's that circle that goes around the knee. I can actually animate that to help my knee transition, okay? So if I start on 13, I'll set that as a key. You can see how that pops out really far, right? So it goes down and then pops like this. Let's actually pull that back with the helper. Okay? And then by the time we get down here, okay, we could zero it out and help us fix that up. So we zero it out. Okay? And it helps you control that knee pop a little bit as we go through there. Yes? The, sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't quite get it all.
You know how we apply like when you do the curves and we apply like the post infinity repeat cycle and also the pre-infinity?
Mhm.
Should we apply both of those for each key?
Yeah, not for each key, for each curve. Okay.
Also, like, when it like rises up.
So the entire body, okay, except for the node, the base node, is simply doing a cycle for post and pre. Okay, for the entire body. The only one that is cycle with offset is the base node on the feet. Everything else cycles because it cycles over and over again. Okay.
So really, you're just going to select the entire curve and then.
Yeah, not individual keys, the entire curve.
Yeah, no, like that's what I mean. Like, are we like supposed to pre and
Post every curve.
every curve?
Yes.
That's what I'm sorry.
Yes. Okay. The only one that's different is the base node curve. Okay. Now, remember that when you're setting keys on your feet, sometimes you may accidentally throw a key onto the linear part of your TZ, and you have to go through in your polish and review that curve because those have to stick to the ground. So you might have to just make sure that that's clean, okay? Because sometimes it's very easy to grab the IK foot when you're doing the movement in air, and you accidentally like hit S, but it'll throw a key onto the translate Z value, and then you have to go in and pull that out because you've actually put something there that you shouldn't have. So you have to make sure that you keep that clean, okay? Okay. So that little helper there on the knees can help you fix that knee up so it doesn't pop. Now we have a little bit of a pop here still, right here. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to rework a little bit of the ball roll. So this guy here, I'm going to use a little bit of that. And I'm going to try and transition this out of here so that it doesn't pop. So here it's popping a little bit. I'm going to pull that up a little bit more. Okay, I want to make sure that there's no popping or overextension in the leg as much as possible. Okay, now I haven't cycled this ribbon yet. I've got to do that. So I'm going to grab all the curbs in the ribbon, post-infinity cycle, pre-infinity cycle. Okay, and that should fix that knee. Okay, and I would just keep going through and examining those until I get the walk to look the way that I need it to look. Okay, now that's how you are going to design each foot. It takes time. You do 1 foot at a time, get the look for your rig, and work through that process, right? So my example that I showed you at the first of class, right? So let's pull this back over again. I've gone through and I've done both feet on this rig, okay? And I've just cleaned up the feet and the hips here so that they have nice smooth knees and they're not popping or anything, right? So you go through that process very slowly. The hips, it's a combination of working the hips, the ball roll, and the rotations on the hips to make sure that you get all of that smoothly working. I can't get this cleaned off. I need that cleaner to go with it, I think. Okay. So you should end up with something like that on your character, right? Now, obviously, the upper body comes into play on top of that, as we spoke about last week. That's all the same, right? You're still just doing the arms and everything in your regular 5 positions. Your contact down, passing up, contact, none of that changes. All we're doing is having the character walk through the scene, right? So, I did give you a document that does go over the basics, right? So it talks about this example of going through controlling the 2 animations, the IK foot sliding backward and the base control moving forward. Both curves must be set to linear tangents so they cancel each other out. The foot appears to stick to the ground without sliding. If there's any sliding, something is wrong. You've got to troubleshoot it. Okay? Base node slides forward. The tangents are linear in the base node. Right? Left foot slides backwards. The tangents are linear at the front half for the 16 frames as the foot is on the ground. Other foot, you have the cycle, 12-frame cycle, but it's cycling over itself, which means you get the linear half, 4 frames at the front and the other frames at the end. So to maintain consistency throughout the contact phase, right, the foot sliding backward should have a linear curve. The amount of frames that the foot slides back depends on the frame length of your cycle. Okay? So if you choose to have a faster or slower cycle, the numbers will change. If I have an 8-frame cycle, right, I'm going to have a quicker walk, which is going to change the amount of time the feet are on the floor. If I have a longer cycle, I'm dragging my feet, I'm doing like a 20-frame cycle, obviously it's going to be longer. I'm going to play with the amount of speed as the foot lifts off the ground. So if I'm having a guy drag home from the office, right, and he's doing like a 24-frame cycle, but he's dragging his toes, right? When he pulls the foot up, I'm going to hold it back. Give me those dragging toes. Animate your toes so they bend and drag, right? Don't leave out the toe control, okay? Check your movement from your heel rotation when it transitions into the rotation of the foot control. So at frame 4 on my example, it zeroes out the rotation of the foot and it uses the foot control. We don't want any heel rotation in the air so it throws your foot off. We don't want any toes to be going through the ground. Check your translate Y. Make sure the feet are not going through the ground as they pull them forward. Okay? This takes time to work through and clean it up. Okay, but once you do it a couple times, it will become easier. Okay? So the base movement depends entirely on how far the foot travels backward in those frames. Right? Final result, your walk cycle or locomotion setup looks grounded and realistic with no visible foot sliding during the contact phase, which means the foot on the ground, right? All right, so 1, measure the foot travel distance back to front. Set the foot and the base curves to linear tangents. Move the base control forward the same distance over the same frames. And verify that the foot appears to be planted as it's on the floor, right? Okay. So this is going to be something that I would recommend you guys today for the rest of the class. Just attempt to get the feet stuck to the floor. Just very simply, don't have to do it on your actual cycle. Just in the temporary thing that we're doing in class, just try and get the feet, don't even worry about the ball roll. Just get the back and forth of the feet locked to the ground as the character is moving forward. Okay, so from now until 3 o'clock. Okay, any questions? All right, let's do it.